And welcome to, damn it, to Total War Warhammer, the backfile of, well, the developer walkthrough. So we'll be watching this video for the first time. Well, I will anyway. Okay, we already know it's pretty good, the in-game engine.
Sega.
Ah, so it's not the Illuminati.
Welcome to our first demo walkthrough for Total War Warhammer. What you're about to see is a scripted version of the battle for Blackfire Pass, a set-piece quest battle between the Empire and the Greenskins. The game is very much a work in progress at this stage, but we hope you'll enjoy having a look at how it's all coming together.
Now is the time, men of the Empire, to unite, for the Orcs gather. Beyond the pass, a war boss draws to him all that is foul. An Orc horde beyond imagining. As Sigmar thought, so shall we. We will become part of the legend. We will wipe the Orcs from our door. And only when this is done, when our nation has healed, shall I take up Gal Maraz for Sigmar, for the Empire, for the Warhammer!
So that was Emperor Karl Franz giving his rousing pre-battle speech. He's one of the game's legendary lords, so he's a powerful general and a mighty warrior in his own right. Playing a campaign as the Empire, you'll unlock this particular quest battle as Karl Franz levels up. So the Empire's fielding a lot of artillery in this battle, but it's worth noting that you won't just be able to recruit all of this stuff right from the start of the game. There are quite a few late-game units on show here today, and the same goes for spells as well. You'll see a lot of kind of late-game, high-level stuff. Now, as we approach the Greenskin line, you can see just how different these two races are. The armies from Warhammer Fantasy Battles give us so much diversity to work with. The playable races in the game are going to look and play really, really differently in both campaign and battle. And looking out over Blackfire Pass for a second here, you can just see the kind of fantastical landscapes that we've never been able to do before in a Total War game. And this is just one geographical part of the old world. This is the Greenskin race leader Grimgor Ironhide. He's accompanied by the Immortals, his hard-as-nails band of Black Orc bodyguards. He's also brought an Orc Shaman into battle with him, so we'll see him throwing some spells around in a bit. So these snickering little goblins are manning a Doom Diver catapult. And you can see a goblin fanatic there climbing into the mechanism eagerly with his homemade wings strapped to his arms. And as it fires, you can opt to take first-person control of the Doom Diver and pilot him to his doom. Now, it's a pretty wild ride, but once you get the hang of it, you can really get proficient.
No, look out!
So that's another spellcaster right here. This is a Goblin Shaman. You can see him riding his wolf there. So he casts spells from the Little War magical lore. So there's a bit of a flanking counterattack lining up here from the Empire. We've got some ranged cavalry up front there in the shape of Outriders and Pistoliers. Coming up behind them, we have the noble Imperial Knights of the Reichsguard and a unit of Demigriff Knights. These are super heavy shock cavalry on vicious Monstrous mounts. Now, they can withstand a real pounding, so they're really useful in longer melee engagements. the Goblin Shaman here has just cast a spell called the Curse of the Bad Moon. Now, it's a pretty powerful, impressive-looking high-end spell, but it's worth noting that we don't want magic to be too OP. You'll have a limited pool of magic to use in every battle that recharges over time according to various factors. But basically, you're going to have to pick and choose just when to cast high-level spells like this. We don't want magic to totally dominate the game. It's more of a kind of useful supporting tool. So the demis are going in now, and you can see just the beautiful handcrafted animations at work here. I mean, you can see that throughout the battle. One thing that we're still working on is cavalry versus cavalry impacts, and in fact impacts across the board. So what we're aiming for is scenes like this to be much more punchy with more physical hit reactions from the cavalry that are struck. In short, we want to make a real kind of spectacle of these engagements. So panning down the line here, you can see just how dynamic our infantry charges have become. You've got units leaping into the fray, defenders physically bracing for impact. You've got AoE attacks going off from large characters. That's Grimgor Ironhide there, getting stuck in with his big magical axe. And in go the trolls at the end of the line here. Now, monstrous infantry like this have you know, lots and lots of hit points. They can mete out a ton of damage with those big attacks as well. And these guys are also, as you can see, partial to puking acid bile all over their enemies. Bit of aerial combat going on here between Deathclaw and the Wyvern. Now, if you gain mastery of the skies in a battle like this, you can then use the maneuverability of your flying units to strike pretty much anywhere on the battlefield. And as the Wyvern comes down here to attack these state troopers, you can see how each of these big monsters has some really spectacular combat animations. It really brings them to life and gives them tons of character. Now, these are two of the Empire's hero characters. This is the Warrior Priest, and just beyond him there, the Witch Hunter. Heroes are essentially agents, so they can roam the campaign map, perform a number of different functions, but they're also powerful solo warriors in their own right, and if you attach them to an army, they can then throw themselves into combat alongside the troops. So this is the Orc Shaman casting one of the spells from the Big War magical lore. So he's casting the Foot of Gork here, which is literally summoning the Orc god Gork to stamp his enemies into the dust, which is, as you can see, bad news for the Luminarch and the steam tank nearby. And finally, the Empire's celestial wizard is summoning down the Comet of Cassandora.
Right, now for the review section. That was pretty cool, wouldn't you say? Anything in the back? No, just logos. Coming in 2016, everyone. Woo! So, first let's mute the thing. Let's let it render, and we'll start talking. Now, we see the Imperial Army here, pretty cool. We see all the diversity, so they're just showing off, really. It's not an actual battle. But there's many good things I like about it. We see the flying units being used in battle. We see everything, essentially. But this is obviously for advertisement purposes, and there's still a few flaws in it that I don't like. Well, first, let's just admire the Imperials again. Now, these guys obviously have good morale, mind you. I mean, like, sticking it to those orcs with all the trolls and that. I mean, like, it goes to show that the trolls won't be too overpowering, as in Third Age. They won't be able to climb ladders or that, hopefully, either. But there's a few things I would like to point out. Number one, these orc units here, they seem to have a big hit, but they can't really stay in combat. But do remember that the Imperials had 2 ranks of men, whilst the orcs just sent everything in at once. So maybe a balance here and there. We see the Imperial artillery guns, especially Hell rockets, but if you notice, it just replaces the cannons. They're pretty alright. We don't really see anything from them, but we do know they do devastating damage later on in the video. Now, this is really just the overview portion. He's telling us mages, but it brings up a good question of, well, how many is there a limit to mages you can bring? Can you not bring an entire army of mages, you know? Like, you see we got these massive spiders now. These things are brilliant shock, but as you could see, apart from the big ones, but the little ones, all the orcs, they didn't really stand up against the Imperial main line for long. We see giants, and we see the outrank. So it's pretty good, We see they have a mage, maybe he's like a priest. And we got legendary characters such as Grimor here. Grimgor even, with his immortals again. Pretty cool. They're called knobs, but I guess you're going to have to give them another name. We have the hilarious animation of the Doom Diver. Shall we go back and admire his work? As you can see, he's flying through the air. Yeah, I had to make that reference. It does go to show that self-targeting by the human will be back in action, which is a pretty cool feature. And considering it's just 1 goblin, that's a lot of damage. Now we see the shot. They can also be mounted on wolves. And there's limits to their spells, because that's a devastating volley fire. But you see, they don't really fire again. And this is kind of a tactical flaw. Like, these guys are only light cavalry to be fair enough with you. But up against Imperial swordsmen, they should be doing a bit more of an oomph in my reckoning. Because they are lightly armored, but then again, these guys do look pretty well armored. For state troops, anyway. We see there's a few on the flanks. We see the Imperial flanking force sitting in the woods. So a bit of tactics. These are more, if you're wondering why do these orcs have pain, these are savage orcs. If orcs aren't already savage enough, then voila. You see, those guys were obviously heavy cavalry. Speaking of heavy cavalry, we see all the Empire's glorious cavalry. To our left, we have pistoliers who use pistols. The Outriders are the one with the repeating guns. These are knights. Any Imperial nation will have them, trust me. This might only be like right clan. We don't know how diverse it is. Will all the provinces be included? Will they not? Who knows? Demigryph Knights, pretty much the elite of the elite for the Empire. Now we see magic. Now he does mention that there's only a limited pool. And these spells, they can be pretty useful, but by God, it's destroying an entire unit of Outriders and Pistoliers. Not the best move by the AI, because it looks like some of the Pistoliers got away, but yeah. That death animation really just slowing them down. We do see that little goblin runs away though. Kind of annoys me. I mean, like, I would have at least spent the time. So maybe a big end game spell like that can only be used once, hopefully. Now over here we see the devastating cavalry charges. They say they're going to improve on it. And here's the bracing mechanics now. The brace mechanics, more importantly, looked back here. As watched this area, and try to anyway, I mean, like, you see, we can't really tell because of the orcs, but when it's little goblins, I find it easier to tell. And you see the Imperial troops trying to fight back, but these orcs, including Grimmer himself, just cleaning a path for the poor troopers. Thankfully enough, though, Karl Franz has been smart enough to separate his lines into droves instead of one massive line, because, yeah, trolls. They don't really call them trolls for nothing. I feel as if these spearmen should be doing a bit more damage to the trolls, and I don't really understand how those spears ended up on their back every time they fall. You see, they do some damage, but the vomiting in that, I mean, like, that troll there was taking down my missile fire. Now we see the second rank's gonna run in, possibly mop up, so it's not a tactic that any player would use, but the orc charge is certainly devastating. We see some aerial combat. I find it a bit static. I imagine him moving a bit more, you know? Obviously, your eye is attracted down here. It just looks very... it's just those second intervals. I'm picky, but I gotta be picky, you know? It's a game that I love, and I want to see it do well. So you see that death was just really... It's not the best. Like, I would imagine Death Eagle, like, putting its claw over the wyvern's face and just biting the guy. We see the handgunners here. They do shoot at the flying unit, but most of them do miss, and they don't do that much damage. When in reality, these are handgunners. And this many handgunners will do something to that wyvern. But then again, it's commanded by a war boss, so yeah. I don't really know why the wyvern doesn't eat anyone. You know? Like, it doesn't eat, it just throws them. And here we have, oh, this is my best bit. This is where the Priest of Sigmar is like, okay, let's show them what heroes can do. I can not only sabotage, but I can be a part of the battle as well. Behold, as I unleash my glorious wrath that I've been training for 10 years on goblins. So, it shows that heroes will be used in battle, but they won't be game-changing, in a way, I guess. But that's fair's fair, right? Like, they are named characters, but they're normal. And we don't know how, there's a lot of these devices. There's a lot of mages in the world of Warhammer. We don't know if all 8 orders will be included, but it'll be, and that's a bit cartoony, that laser beam, you know? I mean, like, the steam tank, that's perfectly fine, but, yeah. Then we see the Foot of Gork. This is possibly another endgame spell, so maybe a mage can only cast one of this, but then again, there goes the question. How many mages can you bring to a battlefield? That's the thing. If you could bring 3 mages, even those little goblin ones that hardly do anything, you could have wrecked the Imperial main line like that. The orcs wouldn't even need to struggle, and there's the spider. Spider eats people perfectly fine, so does the giant, but anything else, no. Nope. I mean, like, you guys could rewind it and just watch it, you know? Like, so, spider likes his kebab. We see Deathclaw in there. We see Imperial troops actually taunting the giant. Pretty brave of him. See, the giant eats somebody, but he still has his head for some reason. And, like, the giant has a pocket animation, so he just, yeah, see, he bites off the head, then puts him in a pocket. Come on. Yeah. So, you see, now the orcs are losing because the second line was unleashed, and we see the shaman still staying there. We got a unit of arrow boys. That's what they are seriously called. Look it up. In the back, just standing, just chilling. And then we got my favorite bit. It's the return appearance of that poor Astro Mage. He's like, remember me? Remember me? Well, look what I brought down. I brought down a meteor. Boom. Yeah. Call of Warhammer. So don't forget to comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. And I'll see you next time. Hopefully, I'll get more stuff done. Hopefully, we'll actually play the game. That's what I hope.